Welcome, everyone, through all time and space to an all-new episode of Weebs on the Weekends, a podcast where we break down the anime news highlights of the week and give a retrospective look at anime that premiered 10 years ago. Today's episode will be covering the news from the third week of December 2020 and give our thoughts on what our top 10 favorite anime of 2010. My name is Jay Johnson. I'm a part-time weeb and full-time English language sensei. And with me, as always, is my co-host Sam Martinez, part-time weeb and full-time automail mechanic. How you doing today, Sam?
Bunazua, Professor Johnson. Siadari?
Oh wow, Bunazuna. Interesting. So, okay, I'm immediately going to say I don't know this language because apparently I'm worse off than I thought in languages. Like I've experienced most of the major languages, given with the United Nations recognizes as like the official languages you should know if you're doing operational businesses across the planet. But let's see. So last time you went the Baltic Sea with the Prussian uh, France Franco-Roman language, and so let's see.
Okay,
Huh.
I'm glad that you mentioned that. So for my hint, right? It's good that you mentioned the Baltic Sea because we're in that general continent. we
Okay.
are. I'm trying to choose my words carefully. I have the map in front of me, so I don't have any excuses now in regards to my geography. So instead of the Baltic Sea, we're now looking at, say, the Black and the Mediterranean Sea.
Okay, the Black Sea. Okay, interesting. Okay, so it's like not too far off. So it's still basically in country, or I guess in continent technically. So
Yeah.
let's see, languages. So basically around that area, but
Think more
so
Mediterranean.
Mediterranean. Oh, Mediterranean. Okay, so it's not Indo-European then. I'm thinking about the slave trade now, or
Yeah.
languages that moved across the planet. So Mediterranean extinct languages, old languages of the Mediterranean. You went to Morocco last time, so probably something close to that. Maybe something Turkish, given that's the major, I guess,
Ooh, you're getting warm.
major family group of that area. So maybe I'm going to go with, I think it's pronounced Amrahardic. Amrahardic. Is that it, Sam?
I think like you have to type that out for me or write it down for me to see if that's the language that to see if the language that you're saying is the language that I'm about to say, because what you're saying, it sounds very, very similar. The
Okay.
language that I did is
Oh,
Aromanian.
oh, damn it. Okay. That wasn't it, but that's really close to it. So yeah. Okay, tell me about this
Yeah.
language.
So as I said, you were really close with Turkey. With Aromanian, it is native to Greece, Albania, and North Macedonia, so in that area. And it was estimated in 97 to have 250,000 speakers. It is an Indo European language, and it's an Eastern Romance language, again, to Southeastern Europe, and the speakers were called Aromanians or Vlachs, which is a broader term used to define Romance communities in Balkans. And let's see, it shares many features with Romanian and let's see, more. It's also inherited some Latin, and it shares a lot of the vocabulary with Romanian. So it seems as though like and it's also been influenced by Greek. So like that's why I was thinking more Mediterranean, because it seems as though it's more native to Greece. And the reason why I brought up Greece is because I was doing some quick Wikipedia searches, and apparently Saint Nicholas was native to Greece. Segue to the times of the season. So I just wanted to pick your thoughts a little bit on where you're at right now. What do they normally do around this time of year that's different from the States? If you would like to talk about that a little bit.
Oh, gotcha. Okay. So interesting. Okay. So yeah. Yeah, so because I'm very much close to Russia, we have celebration of Father Christmas. So very much the origin, or I guess one of the origins for Santa Claus is Father Christmas, and how Russians celebrate winter festival season or the winter solstice is basically the same as what we do in the West. So nothing abnormally different, just it's very much adopted the, I guess, modern way of celebration here of like Christmas presents, pine trees, decorations, lights go up, spending time with your family, exchanging gifts. So nothing like too like culturally different than the West, but there are a few things like there are like seasonal drinks that we have here, a lot more alcoholic eggnog variations because this is a big dairy country that I live in. So
Oh,
a lot much alcohol or vodka goes into holiday drinks here, and but basically it's all the same. I mean, even up in the city that I live in is like the streets are lined with like wreaths and what are those
oh, that's
things like
cool.
holly, deck the halls with boughs of holly,
Yeah.
bound. Yeah. So like it's all very Western, or I guess basically going back to the same tides of like Father Christmas in Russia. But yeah, how about you, Sam? How do you celebrate the holiday seasons?
With the holiday seasons, one thing that I like to do is go around to see some of the Christmas lights. There is a park nearby me that essentially puts lights up all around where their mile track is, and you can drive along it and see the Christmas lights. Even in the state of Georgia, there's a place called um, Pine Mountain where they do something called the Fantasy and Lights. It's a 7 mile stretch of land in a golf course, and they basically do it up pretty big where you can go and you can drive and they play music through all that. It's so cool, and I just that's one of the traditions that I've sort of picked up growing up, and typical like to go back home, visit family, things of that nature, sort of like to spend time with them. But as far as traditions go, it's either going out and looking at Christmas lights that people have put up, or making gingerbread houses with my family members. So,
Okay, that sounds all beautiful. Yeah, no caroling this year, hopefully, because of social distancing. Oh yeah, the other thing I want to mention real quick because I
yes.
really enjoy this, but because it's like negative 10 degrees out right now, I'm definitely not going outside to view this. But there's definitely ice castles built up.
Oh, that would be too cool to see. Do they, like, tell me a little bit about the ice castles. Is there a competition? Do people just randomly do it?
It's basically all in the spirit of like polite not conversation, but polite competition. So it's not very much a like citywide kind of competition. It's more like some like creative types or like creative influencers like come out and say, "Oh, we'll build ice castles and make them somewhat of a theme," and like it's kind of like an in community kind of thing. But it is a big ice sculpt ice sculpting culture here, like very much like I would be thinking like of Arendelle in the Frozen movies. That
Yeah,
we have a giant lake here that people can basically drive their
farm
cars
ice.
out on. Yeah, we also have reindeers here, so there's like a lot of sled pulling over like frozen lakes, and it's like really beautiful. So like a lot of like the other extra winter season things are around ice sculpting. So not much of a thing that you can just casually get into, but it's like a thing of like artists like showing up and saying, oh yeah, promotional time for who I am as a artist. So yeah, other than that, yeah, it's nice here for winter, even though it's negative 10 and it's not even the coldest that'll get. Like the coldest time will be coming in like February, so when it will might drop down to negative 20, so that's fun
Ooh,
ways to get a little away from the terribleness that is outside.
the cold.
Sam, you got the news. So there are
Yes,
time
I
codes that
do.
are going to be in the description. As always, we have our best of 2010 coming up later in the episode, as well as Sam, you have the news for what's been happening this week. So let us hear the news.
That I do, that I do. And for the first bit of news that I have right now, there is an anime coming out next year called Battle Athletes Daiun Dokai Restart. Have you heard about this anime before, Jay?
No, that is completely new to me. What is it about?
So essentially, this anime is more of an homage or a more reboot slash revisit. So a little bit like how Dororo was, where they just basically took an old anime and they redid it for modern times. It's something similar to that. It was a comic that went on in the 90s from 97 to 2008, and they had an OVA that was released alongside of the comic within that same time, well, within 97 and 98. And they had an anime that premiered within that same year as well. And essentially, the story is about this girl who is enrolled into this elite academy where basically the focus is on sports, where you go essentially go to this academy so that you can train and become the best athlete that you can be. And it was just very interesting because again, as looking at it, you can see that they have promos, they have a promo video, and they have some stills, and they had also revealed some of the staff and the cast for some of these characters. And as I said before, it sort of reminded me of when we watched Dororo, and I sort of wanted to get your thoughts on that. Do you think that this is going to be a recurring trend where they take old properties from the 90s and from the 80s and sort of renew them for modern times to try to bring life back into the older franchises?
Yeah, that does seem to be something that's going on nowadays. I mean, even if you look at Hollywood, the like most recent example might be Jumanji, and that was back from
Yeah.
the 90s. So that was only like we've been alive during that revitalization of the Jumanji property. But like looking at Dororo, yeah, that was back in the early 70s or late 60s of the original property when it came out, when it got its first anime adaptation. Of course, that's 40 years. Wait, can I do math right? Yeah, so it came out. Yeah, the remake just came out in 2019. So like, yeah, 40 years or 50 years. 50, 50, 50. Yeah, 50. Okay. Anyways, yeah, but it does seem like to be that anime we've talked about when it began back in the 1950s. So like Duro is one of those examples of like a property that definitely needed it for it took a lot of inspiration, or it gave a lot of inspiration to the samurai genre. And like you said, Sam, it does seem to be a upwards trend of taking old properties and renewing it for like modern audiences. Like there's a lot of properties that just came out maybe way too early technically to say that animation has been like any medium, it's been growing and how it's been perfected somewhat over the last few years, to say that, oh, now let's revisit the original Astro Boy, or let's
Yeah.
revisit original. I'm thinking about the mecha that came out during that time after that.
Oh, Gigantor?
Yeah, Gigantor, yeah, about the boy controlling the robot. But yeah, so like all these old properties can basically be revigorated, like you said, and just be reintroduced, because a lot of modern audiences are a little bit more pickier about um, their medium that they're consuming, of course. And then a lot of these, not to say that we're old people, Sam, but these kids nowadays won't appreciate a good black and white anime, even though there's so much anime that is just outstanding from that time period. So just to either colorize it or give it to Mappa and giving it to like the uh studios that are like on the cutting edge of like the next big three generation. So yeah, I'm thinking that this should be a trend if it's not going to be in like this next year or in this new decade.
Okay. And no, I definitely understand what you're saying. And talking about that trend, it's going to segue into the next bit of news that I have, talking about people trying to take old properties and revitalize them. So, Netflix had announced that Yu Yu Hakusho is going to be giving a live action adaptation series that will stream simultaneously worldwide. And it's just funny. Let me see. I'm trying to think when it's slated. It doesn't say when it's slated, but they have a picture promo of the actors that they have for the roles. And as your time being a weeb, what it has been your experience with live action adaptations? And do you feel as though having a live action adaptation of Yu Yu Hakusho would fall in line with the stereotypes of what you've seen or break the mold?
Yeah, that feels like a very redundant question, Sam, but I'll try to speak to it at least a little more critically. Of yeah, so I mean, even Netflix again, like if you look at the big three companies right now, and we're not going to really talk about it again because I don't prefer to speculate about what's going on with the business side of
Yeah,
the industry, especially when we, as consumers, don't get privy to that kind of information of uh, Funimation buying out Crunchyroll. But yeah, so like the big three used to be technically Crunchyroll, Funimation, and Netflix. And Netflix has been pushing through this anime barrier because, like, if you look at the number of anime series and films and specials on Netflix, it's overwhelming.
oh
And
yeah,
you
definitely.
can say their commitment to doing that is with their Cowboy Bebop live action adaptation again, which they do. It does feel very much a not passion project, but it does seem like it's being done in good faith, given that they have the original director Shiro oh, I'm going to mess up his name, but Watanabe, Shirosho Watanabe. Anyways, but yeah, having the original director on board is definitely like one of those faithful things that we hardcore anime fans look for. But like for Yu Yu Hakusho, I don't really see the again. We're very much past the time period where Yu Yu Hakusho had any relevance,
Yeah.
and it's really interesting to see that this property has caught on. So everyone has an opinion about it. Basically, it's odd that this is a choice that they're making now because, for one, they're high school. No, they're not even high school students. Like in the
Oh, they're
original
high
series.
school students. Where,
Uh,
are you talking about in the manga or in the
yeah,
anime?
before the post in the anime in the post time. Well, yeah. So like the setup of the story, they're middle school, right?
I thought it was in high school. Let me see. I'm looking at it right here. He's 14 years old, so he should be in high school.
Okay, yeah, 14. Yeah, so either like first, yeah, freshman in high school. So, yeah, so that does track with like what's, kind of the nomenclature for adaptations is that they're not really trying to go for extremely high concept shows like Bleach. There are of course some good live adaptations like the Roni Kenshin one that came out 2 years
Yeah,
ago now, but to say that Netflix hasn't had a, or at least even in the West, has a good track record for good adaptations, I think the only one that stands out in my mind is All You Need Is Kill, which was adapted into a movie called Live, Die, Repeat or Edge of Tomorrow. But
yeah.
to say that I have a tenuative relationship with live action adaptations, especially after Death Note came out. Wow, I guess I've been 3 years ago now, but yeah, with William Defoe as was William Defoe
Yeah,
Ryu in
he was
that?
Ryuk. He was Ryuk.
Yeah, it's like it just blinked out of people's memories because it was so bad. But anyways, yeah, there's always this kind of Western leaning of a philosophy that we need to make this accessible to our audience and not giving the audience enough credit to say, oh, this is what's normalized in Japanese culture, and then we can relate to it and telling a very human story. But to say that Yu Yu Hakusho, very much from the creator of Hunter x Hunter, sorry, I said the X, but Hunter, say like it's a good property is just like if they were focusing mainly on the Dark Tournament arc, which introduces the Togoro brothers as the main
Yeah,
antagonists, a solely focused martial arts. adaptation and not like spirit detectiving, then I would say yes, but I'm sure that's not the direction they're going to take. So, how about you, Sam?
I'm a little skeptical, mainly because, well, as you said before, like I've it's been a rocky relationship with live action adaptations. There's few and far between that are pretty good. The like you said, the ones being good uh were Rurouni Kenshin, Live Die Repeat, Day After Tomorrow. I mean, sorry, Edge of Tomorrow, and I would say only recently, Battle Angel, Alita, sort of can, if not in league with those, is a trend where it seems as though the adaptation is going very well. It's just I just hope that it doesn't have the same trend as the live action Full Metal Alchemist movie did, or the Bleach film. I hadn't watched the Bleach live action film mainly out of fear because I really like Bleach and I don't want to see a property that's that makes me want to think any other way. So that at least I'm just a little bit hesitant, but it seems as though they're going in a good direction because all the cast members, they seem to be of Japanese descent, so it doesn't seem as though it's going to be a westernized Anglican version of the property, but rather, a sort of FUBU feel would be seen in the movie. And there's no information here saying that Tagashi, the author of the series, is going to be involved. But if he does get involved, it seems like it would be given the same treatment as Bebop, as what you said.
All right, cool.
Yep, yep. So, on to the last bit of news that I have for you. It's another movie news, and I'm a little excited about it because the animation studio that made The Girl Who Leapt Through Time, Summer Wars, The Boy and the Beast, they have revealed that they are working on a new anime film titled Belle. And the Japanese name would be Ryu to Sabakasu no Hime, which literally means Princess of Dragons and Freckles. And the film will open in Japan summer 2021. And let's see, the synopsis of the film is that the film will portray an ever evolving online world that takes place in an online world called U, like the letter U, and it has 5 billion registered users. So, what have you, sorry, the movies that I had mentioned before, Jay, have you had much experience with those films or the other works that that studio produced? The name of the studio is Mamoru Hosoda Studio Chizu.
Right, yeah. So very unfamiliar with them because they've always fallen out my, I guess, perspective of what I need to commit to, I guess, film
Yeah.
animes are, because I'm very much a uh, hardcore Mashoto Shinkai kind of viewer, and it comes to his aesthetic to make just like these beautiful moving pieces of like animations and his background designs. He's always immaculate on. So I haven't experienced anything. I've experienced a couple like the I don't know if you mentioned it, Weathering with You, and when
Mhm.
did we talk about this? Oh, anyways, yeah. So like Weathering You, Penguin Highway, like Can You Eat My Pancreas? So like I fall into those kind of anime movie films because like a little bit more distinguishing or not distinguishing, but the word would be discerning taste when it comes to film. So yeah, what else about this film? I've never heard of this.
No, again, the film. So essentially, the film is going to focus on an online world. So it's going to be something similar to Second Life, and it seems to be. they don't give too much about it. So we may be following somebody who's new to the online community, or something happens with the online community. Because two other films that the studio worked on that are a bit of my favorites are Summer Wars and Digimon Adventure Children War Games, where essentially in both of those films, they deal with an online entity or an online community that people use a little bit like Facebook, that's just so interconnected that they essentially have to log on to their account when they go into their job. And a virus runs amok and takes control of certain people's accounts. And it's so integrated to society that people who are involved in the government, who uh, are in charge of nuclear warheads and things of that nature, or satellites, where like their account is hacked, and essentially like the virus holds the world or the community at hostage, and there is a certain amount of time that they have to resolve the virus. And I really do like the aesthetic of this studio's films, and their stories are really good and interesting as well. Because, like I said, I was introduced to it with Digimon, and my love for the studio was solidified in Summer Wars. And I would have to say that the Boy and the Beast, the story is really what proves in that one, because it has to deal with this kid and having to deal with the growing pains that comes with when your parents are divorced, and having to feel the literally and emotionally having to fill the hole in his heart with, and what that means moving forward. So I really do enjoy this studio's work, and from the description, it seems like they really like to play around with the online world aspects. So I'm not sure if they're going to try to go for something more towards Summer Wars or the Digimon movie again, because they've done the story where the world's held at hostage one too many times. But I don't know if they're going to try to do something similar to Sword Art, or do more of a slice of life in the online community type deal.
Oh, okay, got you. Yeah, sorry. I guess I heard you miss, or yeah, I must have heard you misspeak. Yeah. So, but
Yeah.
these are yeah, the studio and director. I haven't really delved much into their filmography, but now that you mentioned Summer Wars, it's like, oh, that's the director that did Wolf Children,
Yeah.
and yeah, Wolf Children is like one of my. Did you mention that? Sorry, I totally
No, 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 no.
confused.
I didn't
Okay.
mention it, but go ahead and talk about Wolf Children. I didn't mean to cut you off.
Oh, it's fine. It was just like a situation of like that's one of my favorite anime movies. And I was like, oh, that's who did Digimon movie. Or is that the first Digimon movie? And then Summer Wars and
Yep, exactly.
um, I think it's Mirai, which came out what? Wow.
Yeah.
2020 is so weird. It feels like everything was like a decade ago. But yeah, I guess Mirai was maybe 2 years ago. But yeah, so yeah, Wolf Children again is a very um, yeah, subdued story of just like a mother trying to raise children in the absence of a father that's not there, and just like dealing with basically werewolf children. Not much of a spoiler because it's in the title, Wolf Children, literally. So yeah, like what you said, I haven't seen Summer Wars in like whatever a decade, but
Uh,
yeah, for sure.
yes.
He has this good sense of scale. So if the premise of what you just said, Sam, does come to like get flushed out fully, it's going to be really interesting and human story that's probably going to be focused than just like, even though with the Digimon movie there was like this big, oh, there's a world-ending computer virus out there. It's very much just a story about friends trying to save the world. It's like it's all about the friends we made along the way. Not even that. It's just that, you know, basically that Toy Story 3 moment of when they hold their hands together. That's all
Yes.
this director really focuses on, is like those intimate, nuanced relationships between characters. So yeah, I'm interested, Sam. But yeah, so is that all the news you got for us?
Yep, that was my last bit of news.
All right,
So we're
cool.
ready for the
Thank
next segment, Jay.
All right, thank you, Sam. So yeah, that was our weekend or anime news weekend roundup. So our next and last segment of the episode is going to be our top 10 favorite bestest anime of 2010. So now we're going to start off with Does Sam Know? I'm going to make this into a show tune kind of in the future, hopefully. That we had prices right before, and now we're going to just go with Does Sam know this? So Sam, on
Da-da-da, da-da-da.
on your estimation, how many anime did you think was released in the year 2010?
Oof. It has to have been a lot because I think you said that last time for 2020 there was at least 125.
39.
What was 139? Okay.
Yes.
So I'm thinking for 2010, it's back when people were working, doing jobs, and seeing people without the distance. I would say let's go 220.
Only 20 new anime in that
No,
year?
no, 220, 220.
Oh, 220. Okay, 220. All right. Wow, completely overshot it. All right.
Oh, of
Anyway,
course.
it's okay. It's okay. Yeah. So yeah, just talking about like what we talking about, like the production that happened over the last decade, and like noticing trends of that anime studios popping up, people getting more a depth into what anime actually is, getting like more of a global understanding of production coming from Korea or China and other countries outside of Japan. So back in 2010, only 94 new anime were produced, and of course, that's not including any OVAs, ONAs, films, or specials. So over the
Huh.
past couple episodes, we've only covered 18. So I think that's a pretty good number of anime to watch out of a year. 18 out of
Oh
94,
yeah.
what, 10%? So we've covered 10%. But now we're going to talk about our top 10 favorites, bestest anime from the year. So, Sam, we have a system of Yeet, Kobe, and Bench. So if it's a Kobe, that means our on our each list that the same anime takes up the same spot. So we say Kobe. Bench, if you say an anime and it's not on my list, I'll say bench because it's nowhere on my list. And then yeet means that if your choice is higher up on my list, we yeet it and save the conversation for later. And when we get to the very end and revealed our personal top 10 lists, we will make a combined list for the show's list where we have the upper sun of the top five and the lower moon of the bottom five. So Sam, starting off with you, what is your number 10 spot for your anime for this year?
I'm going to be coming in hot, Jay. I'm going to be coming in hot. My number 10 is Panty and Stockings with Garterbelt.
All right, that's a yeet for me.
Oh. Okay,
Awesome. So
fair
right off the
enough.
bat, yeet. Yeah, so that's up on my list higher. So we're going to move that discussion later on. So
Yes,
my number 10 is Star Driver.
that's a yeet for me.
Okay, awesome. All right, so we got two yeets right off the bat. So Sam, what's your number 9?
My number 9, sir, is Night Raid.
All right, that's a yeet for me.
Let's see if we can keep it going.
All right, that's a yeet for me. All right, so yeah, Night Raid is higher on my list. So my number 9 is Occult Academy.
Oh, we're keeping it going, Jay. That's a yeet for me.
Okay, this is going to be interesting. All right, so you had Panty and Stockings at 10. You had number 9 with Night Raid. All right, so you're number 8 now.
My number 8, Hot D, High School of the Dead.
That is a yeet.
Oh my
What is this?
goodness. Yeah.
All right, so I guess we're not going to have any in common right now. All right, cool. All right, so that's Hot D. All right, cool. High School of the Dead, which still bothers me that there is no space in between high school. When you search up High School of the Dead, it's no space between the high and the school. So sorry, that still bothers me. But anyways, so my number 8 is Tatami Galaxy.
That's a bench for me, man. Okay, so we've
Cool.
gotten a break between our yeets. Why is Tatami on your list?
All right, so yeah, it's at number 8. Again, this is a Studio Madhouse production. It's based off a novel series. There's 11 episodes. So again, it's a very easy. Oh, sorry, that's not even true. But the thing that put it so high up on my list, or not, it's not. It's just 8. So the reason why it's on number 8 is that it is so densely populated with language, is that it's kind of hard to like just go on a first viewing. And the thing that makes it so outstanding as a piece of art, and trying to say high mindedness of what is good anime, is just like it's a beautiful animated show. The visuals of it, like there's so many storytelling devices that goes into the visual design. There's like rotoscoping going on. There's a lot of layered cinematography going on. So if you're talking about it on a purely aesthetical standpoint, then it's like top tier for this year. But the thing, again, we talked about this during the episode, is just that the tempo into which they speak, even Japanese people have problems with it, and that's something you just have to go into it, and it very much ruins somewhat of the experience. So not only are you dealing with subtitles, there's no official dub, and even if it was dubbed, it would sound so, I guess janky would be the word, because again, a lot of this goes into the kind of Monogatari kind of surreal
Yeah,
things, is that you're supposed to experience it. Is very much like a, I don't know if you've ever seen a Terrence Malick movie like Thin Red Line or The Fountain or Tree of Life,
I
but
think I've
these
seen The
very,
Fountain years before, but I would have to watch it again.
yeah, for sure. They're like just very cerebral movies, kind of like somewhat like Cloud Atlas, I guess, if it's another parallel movie. But it's very much a cerebral, hard to digest movie that you'll, or anime series that you have to probably go back to watch. I haven't gone back to watch it. The OP is excellent. OP, the opening.
Yeah.
Same thing with ED. Same thing with the music design. The character designs are very unique. We talked about that the series was based off of a series of novels, basically in the campus. It's like a genre called the campus life genre, where it's just taking place on university campus and like talking about what it's like to be a college student. So like all of it's around good material, and it's like a good presentation. It's just that it's so hard to digest that it can't really be that too far up on my list, even though it's like one of the most beautiful pieces of anime that came out this year. So that's why it's on my list. Any particular reason why it's, is that the exact reason why it's not on your list, Sam?
A little bit, as yes, as you said, because of the digestibility. Again, it feels like it's for us by us, but for people who appreciate art and cinema. And in our episode, you mentioned that it should be it should be required viewing for anybody who is going into anime and or animation or film directing, and it's very good for those type of things, and it tells a story in a very interesting way. However, if you think about it, this came out in the time when you could probably only watch it once a week, and even then you wouldn't really be able to really understand the story unless you went in knowing what the premise of the show was about. However, I would say like back in the time when it was coming. Well, no, it came out in 2010, so you could probably binge it all after it's been streamed. So I would just say the best way to watch this is in binging, and because of the high volume of words and the amount of info dumping that goes on in each episode, as you said, it's very hard to digest, and it would be very difficult to do. So it's because of the digestibility, like why that's not on my list. And that's not to say that it's very good in what it does, but it's just because of that why it's not. Why I don't have it on my list.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, completely acknowledging that giant weakness in is enjoyability. I think if the apocalypse happens and you're stuck inside a bunker with a full catalog of animes to watch, then this is probably the perfect time to watch Galaxy, so you can fully like rake over all the information that it's presenting and like analyze each scene by scene. But yeah, it's available on Funimation. So I do kind of recommend it, even though it's in my eighth spot, more just for like the visualization of it. And but yeah, it's kind of a too dense to enjoy kind of situation. So Sam, what's your number seven since we've yeeted all your other ones?
Let's see if we're going to yeet or if we're going to Kobe. It's going to be Bakuman.
Oh, that's a bench.
Oh, what? Bakuman didn't make the list?
No.
Bakuman didn't make the list. I need to know why it didn't make the list, Jay.
Oh, so before you tell me why it's on your list, you want me to tell you why it's not on my list?
Yes, because I for sure would have thought that Bakuman would have made the cut.
Right. So we when we did the first three episode tests, I said it failed. So it's very much a one of those situations of a slow slice of life on a very niche topic. Again, talking about I enjoy hobby shop talk about
Yeah.
many things. I just recently got into light restoration videos on YouTube, and I very much enjoy watching the process of how machinists and artifactors restore pieces of art. So it's very much in that kind of vein of it's a process to uh, watch Bakuman. The characters, again, this is done by the same author of Death Note, so it doesn't have that same likability, I guess, established with Kira. Sorry, not Kira, but Light Yagami at
Yeah.
the very beginning. So you kind of get swept up in the whole childishness aspect of the character's motivations, as well as getting over past traumas. That does feel somewhat sped past, kind of to get to the main meat of the series. So I didn't go past the three episodes, so I didn't really feel comfortable putting it on my list just for that reason. But tell me, Sam, why is it so high up your list on seven? It's pretty much halfway through your lower moon, so
I would say mainly the reason why I have it on my list because I didn't watch past the 3 episodes, but I feel as though that it would still be a good story for people to watch or something that people can get into, even though it does do a lot of shop talk because the romance is such an integral part to it. It's easier for people to latch onto. And with the dynamic between the main two characters, there's going to be enough comical hijinks where you would get invested and you will still learn about the manga process. However, you won't necessarily get bogged down to it too much because of the personalities of the two main characters as well as the goals that they set for themselves. One thing about them is that how proactive they are. So it's interesting to watch protagonists essentially choose their journey and not necessarily be reactive to it. So I can see that getting more people to watch it and enjoy it as well. And so that's sort of why it's a little bit high on my list because of the shop talk and it's more easily digestible for people to watch.
all right, cool. That's fair. Yeah, so I wonder if we're going to keep it up with the Yeet for my number seven because I feel like I hear it in your voice that my number seven is going to be higher on your list. But my number seven
We'll see.
is Katanagatari.
Oh yeah, that's a yeet.
All right, so yeah, that was my number seven. So Sam, what's your number six?
My number 6 is Sound of the Sky.
Oh my gosh, that's a Yeet for me.
Of course.
I don't. I think all of all of my okay. So all of my suns are in your lower moons, and all of my lower moons are in your upper suns. I think that's literally
Of course.
how it's going to break down. So that says something about our chemistry as co-hosts. All right.
Two
So
halves
your
of the same
six.
coin.
All right. So your number six was Sound of the Sky. Perfect. All right. So my number six is High School of the Dead.
Okay, we finally got to one of my eats. So why is Hot D so high in your lower moon?
Yeah. So for sure, it definitely comes down to this distinction if you're watching the sub versus the dub, and you watch the sub, right, Sam?
I I watched the dub when we revisited it. I think I watched the sub when it first came out. But
Okay. Yeah.
uh,
So
tell us a little bit about the difference.
yeah, so it's very much a one of those things of when uh, dubbers take a lot of license with the property. I mean, we've seen that with Ghost Stories is kind of like the most classical case of it. How the humor just kind of it's just a completely different series overall from the sub version. Same thing what with abridgers do with series. Thinking of the Helsing Ultimate series or the Sword Art Online or Log Horizons, which made a lot of YouTubers famous. Even I mean Dragon Ball Z abridged, going back to like the OGs about it, Team Four Star. But yeah, so like the distinction between the two is that the dub is very much a pro American stance. Again, taking that to the idea of what the how Japanese people see like the zombie genre and kind of making a meta commentary about what it actually does for the movie industry or what it means to be basically involved in like the zombie genre. Again, that's something that the West kind of not even co-created, but solely created in and of itself is like zombies or the mythology about zombies. So to say that to put the dub on it, like there's things like mentioning the uh, NRA, talking about how one of the main characters is a advocate gun rights kind of advocate because Japan is very much a gun strict heavy country
Yeah.
as with revisiting like in the episode again talking about these series that we've covered in more details for longer periods of time is that this is basically the wet dream between Michael Bay and Zack Snyder. It's like overdeveloped sexual violence, sexualized violence. One of the main characters basically you find out basically what episode was that? Episode 7 is that she literally gets off on violence and there's even a
Mhm.
sex scene in I think episode 10. So yeah, High School of the Dead's 12 episodes. It's by Studio Madhouse, available on Hulu, based off a manga series, and it just comes down to like that extra layer of commentary that it's trying to make. So if you're enjoying it for the surface of like big tittied anime girls doing killing zombies, okay, but also of what does it actually say about teenagers trying to go through adolescence when the world has basically become this somewhat of a alt right perfect scenario for like doomsday preppers. And it's just an enjoyable romp if you kind of know what it's trying to say. So I'm putting it so high on my list because it's very pointed in that way. So Sam, you put it on number 8. Why is this so, I guess, technically low on your list?
I guess because at first I was really watching it for the superficial stuff that you mentioned, and hearing back on what you're saying, how meta of a commentary it is. We did mention about the meta-ness of the Japanese take on American society in the episode. However, I didn't realize how resonant the themes were with you. I can see it now mainly because of what all that had happened this year, especially here in the States, in terms of the civil unrest and with what's going on with the pandemic. And I feel as though that people would resonate with this show a little bit more. So now that I'm thinking about it, I'm having sort of what's the phrase for it? Sort of like an order remorse, right? Because I the reason why it even made my list was because I had a fun time watching it, and now I'm a little bit remorseful that I have it so low on my list because of the meta comments that you had just mentioned, Jay. So
Okay. Yeah, yeah, it's fair. I mean, it's just on it's the top end of my lower moon. So we're about to get into the upper suns. Wait, are we going to be to the upper suns? Yeah, you're number 5. But just to
yes.
close out about High School of the Dead was why, again, talking about why I'm very impressed about it. And just speaking about actually what you just said, Sam, is that to revisit these series like 10 years later and especially what we're dealing with right now is just even more resident. And I am not looking forward to the day when Hollywood says, hey guys, let's make a Corona or sorry Big C word movie now. And like you think about after 9/11 for the U.S. People, there was very much a um, grace period, I guess, before Hollywood was like, "Hey guys, is it okay that we test a movie talking about terrorist acts and like destroying buildings?" And we kind of recovered from that back in 2015. I think that was when White House Down and Olympus Has Fallen came out. So
Yeah.
we're very much okay with destroying American monuments again, or American institutions again. But anyways, yeah, to revisit High School of the Dead in the current year, 2020, is like kind of a little bit more resonant. But Sam, what's your number five?
My number five, sir, is your number eight, Occult Academy.
Oh, sweet. All right. So that's way high on your list. So can you tell me why it's way high on your list?
It was mainly the reason why I have it so high on my list is because I had so much fun watching it, and it was how they wrote the characters, the character interactions with one another, and how they presented the mystery about the uh, timepiece, and uh, they're trying to figure it out. And I just really, one thing that I really loved about this show was the relationships that they had with the characters and with the female characters as well. For instance, when they depict these high school kids, they're not overly sexualized, which is rare for anime. When you look at them, you're like, okay, these guys, they look like kids. They look like high schoolers. Even the main character, she's a little plain, and even though she's supposed to like be pretty, like she's still drawn in a fairly plain manner. Where it's like, okay, they're not over sexualizing her, and I like the again, like I like the strong female characters that were written in the show, despite one of them being a teacher gag. The one with the two buns, I forgot what her name was, but she was essentially a gag. But like she even had some good serious moments, and they even had strong male characters in this series too. And I like the fact that they were able to write strong female characters. Uh, as well as strong male characters, and the male characters didn't have to suffer for the strength of the female characters. So that was one thing that I appreciated. It was fun. They could have tightened up a little bit more at the end with the time travel stuff, but but as far as what they did without the rest of the show, I think it makes up for it.
Okay, that's fair. So this did take up my number nine spot, and
Yes.
like I said, it's a uh, interesting character design piece from a original property. Again, this is the first series in the Power of Anime project that came out in 2010. So it was a Call Academy, followed by, was it Night Raid that followed this? But it was also Night Raid, or sorry, actually Sound of the Sky followed this, and then Night Raid.
Mhm,
So
yeah.
those are the three anime that came out for this project, all by Studio A1 Pictures. So yeah, A1 Pictures is known for their, not overdeveloped sense of character design like you would expect, like Moe with other companies, or like specific design to their characters. So it's like very subdued, but they're so focused on the story elements of telling good story. And it's like 13 episodes, but they do why it made my list over like Bakuman, for an example, is that they do take an interesting approach of talking about occult
Yeah.
mythologies in the series from different cultures, as well as like they talk about like Tengu in like the first couple of episodes, and they even go into the extraterrestrial, and they have that bumper at the end of these things don't exist unless you believe in them. So again, talking about the intent behind it and talking about original ideas, that's why it made my list. So it's an interesting series, and I'm glad that I've watched it. And it's so down on my list just because of not that it's going to be forgettable, but there's nothing extremely memorable, I guess, about it.
Yeah.
That's the one thing that really discounts it against all the others. Like Tatami Galaxy is higher on my list because of its cinematography. Katanagatari is higher on my list for its like Quentin Tarantino s over exaggerations, studio Gynax trigger kind of aesthetic. So yeah, like the subdued like design of what you said, Sam, is kind of what kept it so far down on my list. So yeah. All right, so that's your number five. My number five. Here comes the last yeet for you because sure all of your upper moons or your upper suns are going to be talked about now. So my number five is Gundam Unicorn.
Wow, Gundam Unicorn made the. I was surprised that we had Gundam Unicorn on the list. That's the bench for me, mainly because I wasn't thinking about OVAs. But go
Uh,
ahead, I want to gush listening to hear you give Gundam Unicorn some praise.
Okay, so yeah, I'll talk about it, but I do want it to make on the final list, Sam. So maybe you can think about it where you would put it on the list if you do want to do that, because I do think it's one of the, it's even, I mean, it's on the lower end of my upper sons, but yeah. So like again, not a terribly invested mecha fan, even though I grew up as one, but yeah, this was just a again signifier of a OVA series of 7 episodes. It's done by Sunrise, so the Gundam company is based off a novel series. So it does have like all the like benchmarkers of like a good adaptation, but when it goes into like the musicality of it, how it's scored by Hiroyuki, it's the Attack on Titan music director. I forgot his last name, but Hiroyuki, I think is his first name. But yeah, talking about the musicality just makes the show. I've talked about it. I mean, we covered it in series a whole
In depth,
season
yes.
this this year about how it works. And again, to just mention about why it's so high up on my list is again the musicality, talking about it's not very much about Benager Lynx, the main protagonist of the series, but everything around him. The space battles are interesting with Full Frontal as a antagonist, as Marita Cruz, best waifu of the series. Again, my complaints about it has always just been a thing of like the mecha genre in general, and that it doesn't do anything to subvert its tropes that I'm just bored with or tired of or seen too many times. It doesn't do anything interesting with that. But again, what it does do is excel in all those aspects, and that's why it's so high up on my list. But you completely left it off just because it was the OVA that we covered.
Yes, I was just mainly focusing on the anime, but I'm glad that we can do that now. I'm just trying to. Oh,
Okay, I'll let you. I'm going to gush a little bit more
yeah.
because
No,
I think
because I'm trying to make a hard decision right now because I have to bump somebody out of my upper sun, and
you know, just speaking again about what goes into like making a good mecha, like again, the designs of Star Driver talks about like the mech design is very essential to what makes a mech genre kind of attractive, as well as the world. There is a lot of intense world. It's very much a pretentious showing that if you do know about the lore and history of the Gundam series, that you're going to enjoy it a lot more. Again, that's why maybe it's way higher up on your list than it is on my Sam. But for a novice of not knowing anything, even before this, not knowing what UC stand for,
yeah.
Universal History. Yeah, knowing that, and it doesn't delve into that much, but again, it just adds that whole extra layer to it. Again, I see why this would be higher for Gundam fans, but for me, it's just a, not middle of the road, but it's like on the lower end of my upper suns. So, yes, again, like I would say, there is a moment where I terribly hated this series, and then a moment that I terribly love the series. So it all comes down to very much a where do you place, I guess, values and like the importance of like character versus world versus animation over sound design. So all these things like Unicorn just excels in all these aspects, and it's just like where do you side? So like that's why I made my barrier between my moons and my suns on my list. So Sam, okay, we'll come back to. I don't think it's going to be your number five, so we can move on
No.
to four if you like right now.
All right, so it was funny because I just had to bump out my number four. I don't know if I want to give him an honorable mention or not, but my new number four in my upper sun is working slash Wagnaria.
Wow, that's a bench. Wow, I was not
That was a
expecting.
bench for you. Holy
Okay,
smokes!
okay. All right. Okay, don't do that when I put Gundam Unicorn on my list when you put working on your list. Okay, tell me why. Tell me why.
I'm not gonna lie, I partly put it on my list because I thought you enjoyed Slice of Life more than I did,
Mhm.
and I'm not gonna lie, it was. I'm going to admit I enjoyed it a lot more than what I thought that I would, and I normally don't enjoy Slice of Life, and despite the annoying love despite the annoying romantic themes and the high amount of male violence that goes on in this show, or violence against men in this show, it was very endearing and it was a fun time. I mentioned before in the episode that I feel as though the intro matched perfectly with this anime, even looking back, comparing it to some of the newer animes that we've seen. Even though, for instance, Star Driver was done very well, was very aesthetic, I feel as though that the opener prepared you perfectly to what to expect for the show. And thinking back on it now, I probably should have put it a little bit lower because working, it's one of those animes or one of those shows that you can watch and sort of have it as good background noise, because like that's what I sort of do. I sort of listen to, say, like Kim's Convenience or some other comedy in the background while I'm doing something, and Wagnaria is good for that, whereas you can sort of watch it casually if you want to, and that's sort of why it should have made that's why it made my list, because it's good for the casual viewer. You can enjoy and have a good time with it. Thinking back on it now, it shouldn't have been in my upper moon. I'm sorry, in my upper sun. It probably should have gotten a lower moon spot, but I still would have put it on my list because of how fun one can have with it, even if you do watch it casually.
Okay, that's fair. Yeah. So, I mean, it's not on my list because apparently I'm a sadist, and it's on your list obviously because you're a masochist. So that's good. So yeah, I'm going to talk very much again in length about my number four because it's Panty and Stockings, and it's on your number 10 list. But
Yes.
I think it might get pushed off now because of you need to put Gundam Unicorn in. So we'll see about that later on. But yeah, I'll talk about Panty and Stockings. So again, very much why High School of the Dead made my list is that everything that Penny and Stocking, or everything that High School of the Dead tries to do, Penny and Stockings just does it infinitely better.
Yeah.
Again, very much a westernized anime, even though it's done by Studio Gainax, and it definitely does look like a Studio Gainax property. Again, it's original property, 13 episodes, and everything about Penny and Stocking is just so American. It just had to make my list because you look at when another culture reviews, when one culture reviews another culture, like what are their actual impressions of a culture? Again, like the country I live in gets a lot of impressions from media. So like when they see a person of a different ethnicity, they're like, oh, there's a lot of impressions, or there's a lot of foreknowledge of what that person is going to be like. And when you subvert that, they're like, oh my God, they're actually a person. They're not just a avatar of who I thought or had expectations of. So everything that Pain Stocking is about is very much vulgar, crude humor that perpetuated the early 2000s, like with Family Guy, Family Guy, Robot Chicken, the whole Seth
American
Green,
Dad. Yeah.
American Dad, yeah, the Seth Green, the Seth Rogen kind of humor, gross humor, Seth MacFarlane humor of the time,
The,
and then
the
it
Seth
adds on.
humor. The Seth humor.
Oh yeah, I guess it is a Seth humor. Oh my gosh, I never noticed that. Yeah, all right, the Seth humor. Yeah, so yeah, even on top of that, then it goes into playing with so much. It's a raunchy sex comedy, so like to for these two angels to try to get back into heaven. They have like panties that turns into a gun, and they have stockings that turns into swords. But Panty is a basically lust-filled angel, while Pantings is a gluttony-filled angel. So they all have their basically they have their deadly sins intact, and they're basically going out through trying to destroy evil spirits or demons, whatever, to get back into heaven. Then they have a black priest, which has that very racist kind of design with the afro and big lips, back from like minstrel show kind of era. Again, kind of the whole problem with the series, but or at least one of the problems with the series. Again, it's very much outdated, or how Japanese used to portray and still portray people of color in that way. So that's like the issue. But everything else, like having every episode have a American movie parallel, like in the first episode, I think that parallels the Death Race 2000. I think there's
Yeah.
like a high school arc where they do Mean Girls. There's an episode with now I'm trying to think about all the episodes, but yeah, like everything. There's a later introductions of a kind of Kill Bill antagonist and a uh, twins demons of the angels. So again,
Yeah.
talking about everything, that there is a level of film pretentiousness about it, is that like you might not enjoy it if you don't know what it's trying to go for. They even tackle the zombie genre, like with Dead Alive or Day of the Dead. And then even with the priests in the show, there's like pedophilic jokes, and there's like a weird relationship between the black priest and this boy in the show, Briefs. So like everyone's name is based off of underwear. So you kind of get what the series is about, even with the opening scene. Like Panties is in coitus with just some random Joe, and like basically has intercourse like three times during the first episode. So like you really get what the series is about. It follows through with the 3 episode test very well, but everything else is like layered on top. So it's a good time, like you said, like fluffy kind of raunchy humor if you enjoy that kind of thing. Same way as Winaria or Working Was For You. It's just like something you can casually put back on. It has the iconic pole stripper scene to say
Yeah.
claim inside of anime history. So again, it deserves my fourth spot for those reasons. So Sam, what's your number three, or what's your third spot?
My third spot is Durarara.
Wow, that's a yeet.
We're bringing the Yeats back. Of course, of course, of course.
Yeah, this is
Awesome.
going to be hectic making this final list. But my number three, since you've already yeeted from it earlier, is Night Raid.
Oh yeah?
Oh yeah. So yeah, Night Raid, again talking about the power of anime. Um, power of anime animes that came out this year is basically a story of the Japanese occupation of China post World War One. So sorry, I'm speaking to like this is very much a historic anime, and it's very informed about what information is presenting, especially in a not even a pro Japanese way, but just a pro historical fact kind of way, that there were operatives acting in this time, very much in the way of Tinker Tailor Soldier Spy. Talked about like the Cold War, or like Bridge of Spies, again talking about the Cold War. So like Cold War was a war of intelligence. Same thing with what's going on with Night Raid, but the extra anime kind of portion they put on top of this uh, intrigue cake of espionage is that these agents have superpowers. They have hard set limitations to it. Somewhat. Again, you didn't watch the full series, right, Sam?
No, I didn't. Did you end
Uh,
up watching the entire thing?
yeah, so I went back to watch my top three again. So yeah, so
Okay.
13 episodes again, animated by Studio A1 Pictures. So again, the character designs same much as the occult academy is like subdued. They're just very not plain, but they're just not, the kind of stereotypical anime design over exaggerated. So it's very much a human story and talking about the motivations of the characters. There's very interesting with the main character having like a past trauma that they're trying to resolve through, with everyone having, all the operatives in the show having like a clear objective to why they're spies and everything that got them into that business, given like their past or having um, uh, selfish objectives to achieve throughout this kind of time period, as well as it goes into like the political climate of the time and talking about how did the Japanese basically occupy China? How did Japanese officials or how did Chinese officials kind of respond to that? How did they have to deal with the politics of the time? Like, how did this spy organization deal with like arson cases or murders or kidnapping? So all these things are like really set inside the real world context, and I just very much appreciate it and had no idea this anime existed before talking about it on the podcast. So Sam, it's on your number 9 spot. Why is it so low on your lower moons?
I would say mainly because even though they had the interesting setup for the mystery, for instance, you learn that the main girl's brother is working with the other uh, enemy spy organization, and the uh, I'm trying to remember the word that I'm trying to say. The the interpersonal relations between the team members and how they can work well together, and a- as the missions are were going, you were learning new facts about every individual. That was kind of interesting. Even so, I wasn't really pulled into it. I wasn't, even though it was very interesting, I wasn't interested enough to go back and to finish the show myself. I told you when we were watching the show, I had reservations because I thought that I was uh, seeing the end of the show in sight. And usually when that happens, I don't want to watch the show because it's not going to, I feel like it's not going to surprise me. However, it seems as though as the show goes on, it seems like they deal more with the interpersonal between the Japanese and the Chinese citizens, and they make more a statement about that. Am I correct in saying that after what you just said, Jay?
Sorry, I didn't think that was a question, but yeah, it's very much a same way. Well, we'll talk about it in a little bit, but just to call
Okay.
back to something that might be um, common knowledge, is that same way as how Cowboy Bebop tried to address their world building, is that they do take a very much a personal, personal approach to like the different characters that they're introducing. Is that same way here, that in those later episodes they do explore like how are the situations of the world at large affecting like city folks, or how they're expecting the everyday man, and how are these basically superpowered people interacting with people. They basically have a great divide in like
Okay.
do how much does the story actually address that. So yeah, so like what you said is true, Sam, is that you do see at the beginning on the offset of the story that there is going to be a lot of predictability to it, because it's basically a human drama and there's only really one way human dramas kind of play out. So it comes somewhat in the same slice of life way, but yeah, it's just predictable in that sense. But I enjoyed the ride to the very end, is why I would say it's so high up on my list, even though that main criticism of yours is definitely seen through to the end.
Okay, I would at least probably give it another chance where I can finish watching it because, as you said, it seems as though like they uh, give an introspective look on the characters and how they relate to the non-powered people and the social climate at the time. So that will be kind of interesting to see uh, as well. So I'll probably give it another chance since it's in your top three.
All right, cool, awesome, Sam. I appreciate it. So we actually yeeted from three of mine on your three of mine. So I actually don't know what are in your top two spots. So Sam, what is your number two?
It was my former number one. It's Katanagatari.
Oh, okay. Well, we yeeted on Star Driver, right? Did you take that off the list?
Yeah, Star Driver had gotten the
Oh,
X.
okay, okay, cool. All right, yeah. So Katanagatari, wow, that's number two for you. All right, so tell me about it.
I would say because with Katanagatari, I just really, really liked it. The aesthetics, the interpersonal characters, the way that it was done, and especially with the way that they were dealing with the themes of somebody coming into their own, where they basically had him essentially like what it means to be a sword or to be a weapon. What is the definition of a sword? And it shows from a human perspective on what that means, and his relationship with his, I forgot what her name was. I think it was Tomoe. I'm not entirely sure, but his relationship with his handler, how he affected her and how she affected him. And I would say that with their relationship was a bit surprising to me, even though it was a human story, because you would think that after the interaction between those two as the story went on, one person in particular would become more human in the sense that they would realize that their end goal would strip them of what truly would make them happy. However, because they were so set in their ways, it ended up being their own undoing, and then made the story become more tragic. But it ended up freeing the other characters so much more. However, when that character is on the other side, you can see that they, even though they've grown so much, that there is a longing in their heart because the person that they cared for was essentially a sacrifice for his freedom because of her own decision. And I I'm glad that we had revisited this anime, because I was able to appreciate its themes that much more. And that's nothing short to say how the choreography was done very well, along with how each sword wielder was dealt with, and the themes that each sword wielder had meant along their journey as well.
All right, cool. Yeah, that's all completely above board for how the series basically played out. And the only thing that really caught me of interest specifically, it's my number seven, so it's a pretty
Yes.
far ways down on my lower moons at number seven. But again, this is a White Fox production, and I've talked about this uh, in the episode that we talked about before, is that it's not a binge. It is not a binge worthy show, or I mean, it's not a show that you should binge. It's a show that you need to slowly digest. It's a
Yeah.
good on a weekly basis show, or spaced out for the 12 episodes. But yeah, it's from a um, it is a light novel adaptation, and White Fox, the animation studio that was responsible for it, very much has a Studio Gainax or Studio Trigger look. So I was very interested in why White Fox decided to go about that kind of animation character design. And if you look at their other works like ReZero and Steins Gate, is very much a standout among their catalog of how their characters look. So like that's what very much got it on my list for the unique character design. Like I said again, like the very Quentin
Yeah.
Tarantino kind of aesthetic to it, but it's more like Studio Trigger and Gainax again. Like they have the pop up letters on the screen to announce like special moves or the presentation of like certain swords in the series. So again, I think it's one of those that you have to watch. That's why it's above my Tatami Galaxy for me. It says like my lower moons are like things that you should watch, you should give a try to, but I don't really give them too much high praise or like the best of the year. So yeah, this is on my seven. So it's not too bad, not too terrible, but the whole
It should be experienced.
yeah, it should be experienced exactly because I think it was very much overlooked at the time, and I'm glad that it's so high up on your list, so a lot of people can, get introduced to it for the first time. Because I'm very much not familiar with any of the Monogatari series outside of Katanagatari and Mizu Monogatari. So yeah, so that's your number two. So my number two and my number, I know your number one, and you should know my number two and my number one now. But my number two
Hmm.
is Sound of the Sky.
Okay. You sort of flipped the script on there for me, but why is Sound of the Sky your numero dos?
Yeah, so numero dos, mi gusto, Sound of the Sky. Anyway, yeah, so Sound of the Sky, it's very much a series that passed my 3 episode test when we talked about it a couple episodes ago, and I'm imagining you didn't revisit it, but again, I wanted to revisit Night Raid again. I revisited Sound of the Sky, and everything that you said in the episode, Sam, held true through the series. And the reason why it's so high on my list is that it's just a very beautiful way of experiencing the world versus the characters themselves. And the in-depth look to how animation studios go into like their different departments about background design, animation, but it doesn't really like not enough credits given to how the writers write stories that are, I guess, nuanced in how they build the world. I'm just looking to like Avatar and how they, how they do like the delivery mail system in Omashu. I think that was season one. So like it's
Yeah, how they
through
had
like
the trails, or it was sort of like slides for the bedrock trays almost, right?
right, exactly, yeah. So everything that Sound the Sky does into developing a mystery about this is a post-apocalyptic world, but they very much don't talk about it outright. They kind of talk about it how we in the real world talk about the Holocaust. It's like yes, there's monuments. Yes, everyone's knowledgeable about what happened, why it happened, who it happened to, its significance, and that's how they just go about addressing this post-apocalyptic world is that everyone knows that there was a war. You don't have to explain to the audience that there was a war, and that's how they go about their storytelling is that it's very organic. And even though it is a story and it needs characters, it's just that the themes of this world are so strong is that what happens to the world when we're basically driven to extinction. And something that sci-fi usually tackles with these stories, a lot of the Frontier series, Frontier Macross series address about when do cultures collide, how do they assimilate, how do they mix. So yeah, Sam, you talked about like the town is based on a real Spanish
Yep.
town. Yeah, Spanish town. You said there was like this cultural event that's very similar to something that you're familiar with, as well as like Japanese people speaking the language, but then they have like German military gear. There's a broken down cybernetic tank that the main girls are working on. So, but that's literally the only piece of technology. But then they go into like a kind of alien. Again, I don't want to ruin it if you do want to check it out, Sam. Again, but they
Okay.
do go into what were the antagonists to the war, and it's like when that
Oh, the
happened.
antagonists come back. Okay.
Yeah. So like it goes into that, and you're like, is a series that gets better as you go, even though the first 3 episodes isn't really that terribly impressive with the characters to get you hooked on. But if you want to know about a world that's interesting, uh, characters aren't terribly they're not terrible in the way of bad characters. They're just like singular one-dimensional characters that you point out during the episode, Sam, that we talked about is like they're doing the whole girls doing
Yeah,
girls doing
cute girls
thing.
doing military.
Right, yeah, right, because like you spoke to like people that actually in the military, and that's how they wouldn't act this way. So it's very much a detaching point, which they never really get over. It's not really gritty in the way that like Girls Last Tour is, which came out a couple of years ago, and as well as other military dramas. It's not a drama; it's just a bouncy slice of life, but everything with the world is just so well done that I just had to put it so high up on my list. So
I have
it's
one question for you though, Jay. Does the main girl learn how to play Amazing Grace?
oh yeah, she does.
Okay.
Yeah. Mhm.
As long as
Uh,
she, as long as that happens, I'll go ahead and I'll give it a watch because it's in your top three, and I feel like that's something that I want to try and do is watch some of the anime that's in your top three. So
yeah. All
as long
right,
as
cool.
she does that, I'm okay.
As long as she learns Amazing Grace, yeah, it doesn't matter all the girly fluff that you have to get through. But yeah, so I know you're number one, Sam. But tell me anyway, what's your number one anime of 2010?
Of course, since I know that it's now up for grabs, it's going to be Gundam Unicorn. There's no other choice for me. I would have to say the reason why it took the top spot is a lot because of what you said, the musicality, the attention to detail, the characters, and I would say a lot of it is because I am, as you know, I am a big mecha fan, and I have before this was, I would say, probably my first Gundam that I had watched from beginning to end. Before this one, I dabbled into Gundam, but this is the hallmark anime for me when I decided to sort of dedicate myself to watching Gundam and learning what it is. And because you've mentioned this too when we were watching the show in one of our previous episodes. You mentioned how with this series, it's more of a celebration of what Gundam has done and what Gundam has become up to that point. And I would say that was what was a big selling point for me because even though I was a casual Gundam fan at the time, I was able to watch the Gundam. I was able to watch this Gundam series that was still in with the main story of the Gundam franchise, and I was not put off by the technobabble or the history of the world. It was sort of a continuation slash new story in the progressing narrative that is the Universal Century Gundam timeline. And not only that, but the characters and what motivated them to do what they needed to, they felt like they had a lot of dimensions to them. They had wants, desires, there was growth, and there was pushback. And I would say, like, one example that you had mentioned when we were watching the show, for instance, D'Angelo, even though when he's first presented, you think that he's some sort of stool or toady who was brown nosing his way into his position. But then later on, you reveal that he does have the skill to pay the bills. He's no slouch, and he so it made you appreciate his character even more so, like even though he may act a little bit too attached to his commanding officer, he is not the sort of Starscream type character where he just brown nosed to get where he needs to. He is the one that puts in the work and gets to get the position to where he's at. He's so like that's what made his character so endearing, just something like that. And that was in a side character, and they do that for most of the other characters as well. So again, that's a big reason why Gundam Unicorn is in my spot.
All right, that's fair. So I gushed about it before, and it's in my five spot. So my number one. So we've already. It's a yeet from yours. Is
Yeah.
Durarara, and it's of course it's again it's still a top 10 favorite anime of mine, and revisiting it for the podcast definitely reinforced that feel. And it's a based on a light novel series by Brain Base Studio, and again to speak to what Sound the Sky does again with its nuanced world building. Durarara just takes that again and step farther to the highest level of having this urban drama mystery and having the story told from 11 perspectives. Again, it's told like mainly through like a high school student, but it goes into like what is the criminal world of Ikebukuro, a city district inside of Tokyo, is all about these interesting characters. They're all connected through this like Shakespearean kind of central inciting incidents with this mystic element of a headless rider as well as a zombie creating sword, samurai sword, along with like um, well, those are the main kind of aesthetics to the supernatural because it does have the genre of supernatural, but it's very much focused on how are these kids dealing with violence. And again, I can't really overstate how perfect this series is. I guess it's on the similar vibe of how you feel about Gundam Unicorn, and I think we're going to have to fight it out for the number one spot. But for sure that we spoke about this in detail on our first episode of the podcast, which does have so much audio problems. So I do want to recap it so much right now. But just to sum up of my thoughts about this is that all the characters are endearing. They're terribly flawed. They're so interesting is a non-specific word to say why you would like to watch this, but these characters are flawed, they're hurt, they're traumatized, they're ambitious, they're tragic, they're all these things that you can say about why would you want to watch someone's life in living out a slice of life anime, which it kind of feels like because even though they're just going about their lives in the city, like their lives are endowed with criminality to it because they're like covering a courier to the criminal underworld. There's a mob doctor, there's a gang leader, there's a broker, information broker. There's
Isaiah!
yeah, again, like one of the greatest villains of anime that no one ever talks about because everyone's so hype about Aizen, blah blah blah, Bleach, blah blah blah, Naruto, blah blah blah, Pain. But anyways, yeah, yeah, Izaya, and I would say he's like on the level of the Major from Hellsing Ultimate. But not to talk about my favorite villains. Oh, also Toguro and Yu Yu Hakusho. But anyways, um, yeah, but the series again, like what it does well is like it blends out it blends out the world in the way that you are the main protagonist of your life and you have to think about it like that is that everything that's happening to you isn't happening to someone else, so your perspective, your vantage point on things is unique to you, and that's kind of what the anime kind of goes into. Again, talking about there's like even side characters, like there are this group of weebs that go around committing crimes and arson, and two of them are like completely like top tier, push back your glasses. Actually, Gundam Unicorn came out as two different versions and and blah blah blah. But anyways, yeah. So it's just a fun ride. It's 24 episodes. It's definitely bingeable. It's available on Crunchyroll, and I can't recommend it highly without any reservations. So like if Durarara is one of my students, I would say in my recommendation letter that I give this recommendation without any reservations. So yeah, so it's on your
You
number
should
three.
pay him to come to your school.
Yeah, exactly. So Sam, that I don't need to hear about Durarara from you. I don't want to hear anything.
Okay. I would have to say the only thing that we have to do now is we just have to figure out what's going to be our third and our top three.
Yeah, for sure. So, Sam, could you, now that we've gone through each of our individual lists, can you run us through your list one more time since you had some changes to make
All right. Bottom up or top down? It doesn't
uh,
matter.
from 10 to 1?
All right. So, starting out with the lower moon, I have Panty Starkings with Garterbelt, Night Raid, Hot D, aka High School of the Dead, Bakuman, Sound of the Sky, Occult Academy, Working, Wagnaria, Durara, Katanagatari, and Gundam Unicorn.
All right, cool. Oh, we didn't even talk about Star Driver because it was higher on your list, but it was my number
There can
10.
only be one mecha anime. There can
Yeah,
only be one.
yeah, I guess so, but I guess I'm the better mecha fan since I had two mechas on my list. But yeah, yeah, we covered Star Driver most recently one before we talked
Yep.
about our top 10 list. So yeah, definitely, it's a number one. It's a number 10 spot for me. Again, it's a Studio Bones original property, 25 episodes, and It's interesting. Again, a non-specific word like interesting, but yeah, that's my number 10 spot. Star Driver. 9, Occult Academy. 10, Tatami Galaxy. 7, Katanagatari. 6, High School of Dead. 5, Gundam Unicorn. 4, Panty and Stockings with Garterbelt. 3, Night Raid 1931. 2, Sound of the Sky, and number 1 is Durarara. So those are our individuals lists. So Sam, I'm thinking right now number
Mhm.
1 should be Durarara, 2 should be Unicorn, and number 3 should be Katanagatari.
Ooh, you're gonna give Katanagatari the number 3 spot, even though it was so low on yours.
Oh, I mean, I guess we could do Sound of the Sky for number 3 and then Katanagatari for 4 because that would be the actual priority high list. But you're sacrificing your number 1. Wanted to give you number 3.
You wanted to give me that win because I'm not I'm not gonna lie. Like I do have Durara in high regard, and it's sort of weird because with Durara comparing it to Unicorn, they both deal with really heavy topics. One
Mm-hmm.
being war and the other one being the criminality. But for
Mm-hmm.
some reason, when I watch Durara, like I do have fun, but like the reason why I have it in the lower in my top three is because I'm not sure why, but like when I watch it, like if you binge it, right, it can well, like for me, it just really like can really put you like or at least like make you feel a little bit down, I guess, because of like the sense of violence and the criminality element, just like how
Mm-hmm.
oversaturated it is. So I would say like with Durara, like it's probably better if you watch it on a week to week basis,
Mm-hmm.
or something a bit more standard rather than binging.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas like, with Gundam Unicorn, again, you can watch it with you can binge it. I mean, if you think you can with as long of episodes that they have, but
Mm-hmm.
like watching it in such quick succession, even though they deal with heavy topics, it feels as though like they go into that lull, that sort of like depressive lull, and then you can get back out of it with Gundam Unicorn a little bit faster than you do with Durarara. But then again, I don't know if that's the intention between both works, because as you said with Durarara, more about the uh, it's more about Ikebukuro and how Ikebukuro is alive, and how basically like living in it day to day. Whereas with Gundam Unicorn, it's about these people who are living in peace times, and now they're thrust into war and trying to get back to peace times. So
Yeah, for sure. Because a lot of Unicorn is set up in the way of, I mean, for one, they're on constantly a mobile battleship essentially. So a lot of
yeah.
that pull comes from the calm before the calm before the storm, and very much it explores the same topic of war and peace times that Battlestar Galactica does. So uh, I think. I mean, are we arguing if it should be 1 or 2, or
Yeah,
what?
yeah, yeah, yeah,
What?
yeah, yeah. Because like that's the only thing, and like that's the main difference between those two for me. Is just that sense of like I don't know if Durara is in that lull a little bit too long, but I don't know if that's intentional or not. And
Got
so
Okay,
yeah.
yeah. So it does lead into the angstiness of teenage, the teenage years about like what would a teenager have a concept of violence and how vicious can they get in their violence. So yeah, it does dwell in that into a extreme extent. So I definitely feel
Hmm.
that. So I guess it's so high. I mean, I think I'm more adapted to it because I viewed Durara when I was a teenager, so I have that sense of, oh, of course, I can
That
relate to.
solidarity, yeah.
Right, and I think that's where the deciding factor for me, especially for that, is that I don't have any way to feel what Banagher's feeling. That he is essentially a child soldier, and it kind of feels a little bit detached if we're talking about how violence. Like he cries a bunch during the series, and talking about like there's not so much violence. Again, it's not super focused on like seeing pilots stabbed in their cockpits or like blowing up from being vacuumed into space. So it's definitely war. Like the themes of war are strong, but it's not taking the gruesome approach to addressing what war would be in a mobile suit universe. So, oh my gosh, this is
Well,
difficult.
I think like it still does because we see I forgot what his name was, but
Oh, we see
we
it.
yeah,
Yeah, but it's
yeah,
not
yeah,
every
we see
episode,
it.
like you said. It's very much spread out in a very digestible way. You're not seeing
Yeah.
it every single episode. You see it at a very key moment, especially with like Benager goes out with a dude, and the dude exit the mobile suit. He has a bazooka, and as
Yeah,
a
I was talking
distraction.
about him. It was like we see him splattered, so it's
Yeah, yeah. But that's like episode 3 or 4. So it's like you get far
yeah.
into that before that becomes even an issue. So if we're so, do you still want to battle it out for one or two, or
Oh,
are you
like
saying
that's the only thing. Like that would make me want to go for number one because I guess like which would be like more suitable, like in or digestible for like that violence element because like you mentioned earlier with the separating factor between the two is that with Gundam Unicorn you have a sort of pseudo safe space
Mhm.
from the violence, right? With the Battlestar Galactica, you know, you go back to home base. You have a time to decompress and go through it all. Whereas in EK Bukuro, it's a little bit more realistic because, you know, they live in the city. There is no real safe space that you can go to. So you have no choice but to sit and ruminate in the violence that is in your city.
All right, cool. So I'm fine with flipping a coin then, if you're not going to concede.
No, it's I'm just trying to think out loud, really. Um, Mainly because like I said, the sitting in the violence in Durarara, it's just irks me just a little bit too much. Whereas with Gundam Unicorn, it's
Oh, yeah.
more digestible. But
That's
I was sort of just speaking out loud in that case.
okay. So do
This
the
is hard.
unicorn is two, or flip a coin?
I kind of want to flip a coin because like now they're both like on the same, like they're
Yeah.
both equal to me right now. I can't decide.
All right, cool. So heads or tails?
I'll choose heads.
Okay, cool. So if it comes up heads, we'll put unicorn as one and Durarara as two. Okay. Okay, Google. Oh wait, sorry. Give me a second. Okay, Google. Flip a coin.
Hold on, I got a coin right here. Do I? Do I still carry change?
Did you hear that?
Oh, it said tails, right?
Yes, it tails.
There you go. All right,
All right.
so Durara's got the number one spot then.
All right, cool. All right, cool. So, um, I did say Katana. Well, Katanagatari is farther down my list. So, can we do Sound of the Sky then Katanagatari?
Okay. So let's see, because I'm looking at your stuff right now. Because you got Night Raid, Sound of the Sky. Like I do know what you're saying, like how pretty and aesthetic that Sound of the Sky is. So it's more with that show. It's more of watching the show to have them explain the world to you, and not necessarily focus on the women that you follow in it.
Right.
Um, hmm.
Yeah, so it comes really down to the
Yeah.
characters, I guess, between these two, because I don't really buy into the romance. I know that might sound blasphemous since it's so high on your list, but
Yeah.
I don't buy into the uh, romance between the sword boy and the strategist Stratinus.
Yeah. The strategy girl.
Oh, yeah. So yeah, do you just want to do high priority?
What do you mean by high priority?
Oh well, it's seven. Kadana Guitar is seven, and seven on my list. But Sound the Sky is number 6 on your list. So
Oh, that's what you mean. That's what you mean. That's what you mean. Okay. Well, like you said, it you're more privy on the romance stuff. So, like, if that one didn't sell you, um, I think we can do that. Sound of the Sky 3 and Katanagatari number 4, because that's still a lot higher for you as well.
Right, yeah, for sure. So now this is where we get problems because the Cult Academy is so far on my lower moons. I don't have Bakuman and I don't have Working. So for our number five, um,
Working can get the X.
Working into X.
I'm not married to it. Yeah, working can get the X.
Okay. So I guess the next one we have in common is High School of the Dead.
Yeah, I would say that High School of the Dead should probably be next. So, but is it uh but is it upper sun spot material spot for you though?
Yes, because if because Penny and Stocking is higher, so but that's not on your list at all.
No, Penny and
So
Stocking is on my list. It's just number
I
10.
mean, but it's number 10, so it would be naturally pushed off, I guess, technically. So I would prefer Penny and Stockings over High School of the Dead if we're putting something ahead, since it's my number four.
So no, so like that would make sense. Would you be willing to have Penny and Stocking for number 5 and then Hot D for number 6?
Yes.
Okay. Because exactly like what you said about Penny and Stockings, how it essentially embodied the American styles and themes that it was doing, and Hot D was doing the same thing, but Penny and Stockings did it a lot better. So much
Mm,
so that I think the dub is even better than the sub.
gotcha. Okay. So then this would be our number seven. Do you feel stronger about Occult Academy because that's your number five, or for Bakuman, which is your number seven?
Oh, a Code Academy for sure.
All right, cool. Because that's my number nine. So shared commonality, of course. All right, cool, cool, cool. All right, so number eight. Do we feel like Night Raid, or so? Do you want Bakuman on the list at all, or can we put Night Raid here and then Bakuman?
Bakuman doesn't have to be on my list. We can put Night Raid, especially. Are you okay with Night Raid being so low in the lower moon? I mean, we can put Night Raid ahead of High School of the Dead if you want.
Uh, no, it's fine where it is, Night Raid. Because again, I think all your complaints are valid about it, and it does seem like the number nine spot is where it should be for our list. So, like, you have it as your number nine, so I'm fine with it being number eight since
Okay.
it would be a spot higher.
So let's see. We just need our number 9, right? And I'm trying to think. Because for your lower moon, did you want to have Tatami Galaxy on the list?
Um, yeah. So we're basically out of commonalities. So, Tatami Galaxy is again, it's very much a highlight of the year. So yeah, if we have a spot, then number nine can go to that.
Okay, so if you're okay with it, we can have Tatami for number 9 and Star Driver for number 10. Okay,
Uh,
all right. See, that's what I said. There can only be one.
all
So,
right.
what would you
So,
rather have for number 10 then?
um, I mean, do you feel stronger about Working and then Bakuman because those are the only ones left on the list available?
Let's see, because I would say I feel more strongly with working than Bakuman, but I don't know. It's kind of a bit of a toss up. I would say like working for. Well, I guess it depends if we're going for more casual viewing or if we're going for more dedicated viewing. Because working is stronger in the more casual sense. You can pick it up, you can put it down. A little bit like with Penny and Stocking, you can have it on the background in case or if you just want to have a laugh. Whereas with Bakuman, it's more of a serialized story.
Well, I would lean towards. I mean, of what you just said, I would then lean towards Bakuman. Then,
Okay. So why is that?
oh, because it even though it fails the four episode test, it does pass it if you consider episode four. So I did watch two episodes four and five, and it does. hit that shop talk that I've been wanting in like the first episode. So even more that everything that you said about working just makes like churs my stomach. So and like working was just as bad as Angel Beats and King Meow earlier this podcast.
Oh no, it can't be that bad.
It's
Okay,
not that bad. It's just
Angel Beats. It's I would say it's above Angel Beats, so it's like you're dipping your toe into that realm, but it can't be as bad as Demon King. Come on,
it's not that bad.
it,
But
it,
Demon
it
King
just gave
did
you
have anime that he
flashbacks.
there is that. So that's true. Working was worse. But anyways, yeah, my money's on Bakuman.
All right, I'm cool with that. We can go ahead and we can put Bakuman for number 10.
All right, sweet. That's the list. That's our combined list. So Sam, starting off with you with number 10. So this is our combined list for the best favorite animes of 2010. So Sam,
We have number 10 at Bakuman.
number 9, Tatami Galaxy.
Number 8, Night Raid. Is it 1937? I forget what the number was.
1931.
Night Raid 1931 at number 8.
Number 7, Occult Academy.
Number 6, High School of the Dead, aka Hot D.
Number 5, Panty and Stockings with Garterbelt.
At number 4, we are cutting it up with Katanagatari.
All right. Number 3, Sound of the Sky.
And number 2, we are with Gundam Unicorn.
And number 1, the bestest favorite anime of 2010 is Durarara la la la. Exactly. It's the sound of a motorcycle that the yeah, it's the sound of a motorcycle. So Durarara. Yeah, that was really good, Sam. Actually, yeah, I might soundbite that for our soundboard. So yeah, that's a combined list. I like it. It was a good year. So yeah, very much out of 94 animes that came out the year, we covered 18 of them on the podcast for the past basically year of 2010. Wait, yeah, this year is 2020. So yeah,
Yep.
2010. So yeah, so next year is coming up with 2001. There's a lot of uh, noticeable or famous anime that was released in 2011. Go back from Mirai Nikki and Steins Gate, I believe is 2011. I forget.
Oh, are they?
I
No,
believe.
I think it is. Yeah, now that you mention it, yeah, I remember those coming around that time.
Yeah, so we'll have a lot to talk about next year, hopefully. So if if the world's not on fire,
You
or
mean
feel
less on
technically
fire?
we have a vaccine now, so we might have zombies coming up very soon. So we'll
Oh
see.
my goodness, we'll be lucky if we have zombies, bro.
Yeah.
What if we get like mutants?
Oh, mutants like X Men mutants or Mutant Ninja Turtle mutants.
I'd rather be a turtle than having to be Bebop and Rocksteady. Maybe, or no. Well, now I think about it, I think I would probably want to be an X-Men mutant, but
Yeah,
I would still want to go to Splinter's class.
that's fair. I wouldn't mind being Krang, even though he's not a mutant. He's a extra dimensional creature. But yeah, Krang to pilot some kind of mech suit or become a mech pilot for once in my life. But yeah, Sam. So that wraps up 2010. Good year overall. So yeah, Durara Unicorn basically battled up for the top spot. Bakuman made it on the list by the skim of its teeth. You had a lot of uh, I mean, we just talked about 2020 and this very different list. So we had zombies this year, we had a mech, we had historic drama, we had a cinematic piece again, like what you call something should be watched in film school for animation for
Yeah.
year. So Sam, to wrap up 2010, please close us out.
I would say moving forward into the new year, we need to be resilient like the Dullahan and be like the unicorn to be an advocate for possibility.
Oh, I got you. A message from our Weebish families to your Shiawa Seinen Kujitsu.
What he means to say is Happy Holidays and Shiwa Senan Shinen.
And what he means to say is, and a happy New Year's. And to you, our fellow weebs, we'll see you next time.
In the year 2011!